Hello, I am Wraith Pocketwatch, and you are here to watch Pocket Gaming. Yes, I named my gaming channel for a terrible pun. They say start as you mean to go on. Alright, so this was my first match in the Giant and Playground Blood Bowl League. My team, my vampire team, the Ruddigore Gallery, facing off against Gnomons, Amazons, Destroyers of Worlds. This is actually the third time I've tried to record this video. Hopefully it's third time lucky and I won't have to do it again, because I'm getting a bit sick of it now. Yes, so Noah, of course, is the one who set up the league. I'm very glad he did, because it's been great fun, even though the dice seem to hate me sometimes. But my gratitude aside, I'm not going to hold back on criticising his play in this match. And there are some definite mistakes which I can point out. Mistake number one. No rerolls. No rerolls on a starting team. Rerolls, after initial team creation, rerolls double in cost. So it's cheaper to get them first. And they can make a pretty big difference. Now, on some teams, it's more understandable. Say, a Wood Elf team. You could understand if a Wood Elf team chose to start with no rerolls, because their players are expensive. If they want to have a lot of positionals, then they may not be able to afford rerolls. Amazons are not that expensive. I think he started with 4 reserves. He doesn't need 4 reserves to start off with. You can start with like 1 reserve, all your positionals, and 3 rerolls, maybe 4. And then you could have re-rolled that pickup there and not wasted your first turn. That said, picking up the ball is one of the riskier things you can do, so you probably shouldn't have done it first anyway. Like hitting people, if you can get 2 dice blocks, considerably less risky than picking up the ball. And it's not like the ball was precariously placed. I couldn't really get to it. So, you didn't have to worry about me taking it away from you. So picking it up was not urgent. So, yeah, and of course, maybe if you'd switched up some of your positioning by not losing your turn instantly, it might not have been as easy for me to just shove this girl on the sidelines. At this point, I remember, this was actually the first time I'd ever played with a vampire team, and I didn't know how Bloodlust worked. I mean, I knew the rules, but I didn't know how it worked in terms of like the UI, what I had to click on. Of course, you can't see it in the replay, but what it actually is if you fail your Bloodlust roll, you have to feed on a thrall at the end of your action. And you can't just click on the thrall. Here, see, I didn't know how to do it, so I thought I'll move him an extra square? I don't know. In fact, you can't see it on the replay, but there was a button up here which says End Action. You have to click that, and then it says Choose a Thrall to fight. Which of course is why that thrall was there. I didn't need an assist on that blitz, because vampires are strength 4. He was there purely in case I failed the Bloodlust. And yeah, now, because they didn't hit me, I get to hit them. Returning to what I was saying before about not picking up the ball first thing, basically, in Blood Bowl, the order in which you take your actions is very significant. because some actions carry risk, and some don't, and some carry more risk than others. Just moving players, so long as they don't have to dodge or go for it, carries no risk. So, in general, you should do that first. In some cases, where you move players to will depend on other things, like you need to take a block to move someone out of the way so you can move someone through a gap, which will then be created. So then, obviously, you don't move them first. But if you have movement which you definitely want to do regardless, you should do it first, before doing anything which requires any dice rolls, such as picking up the ball with no rerolls. Just a point, if you look at my formation, you'll note there is no way that the Amazons can get through without dodging. They do all have the dodge skill, which means they have a reroll on it, so it's not terrible odds for them, but it's more dice that they would have to roll, which is what you want to do. You want to force your opponent to roll dice without you having to roll dice, ideally. Last and also, I hypnotised this Amazon. If you're going to move a vampire and put him in attacking zone, you may as well try to hypnotise someone if you're not blitzing or anything else, because it carries no actual risk. There is no downside to failing a hypnotic gaze roll. And if you succeed, sometimes it can really inconvenience your opponent. Because if a player is hypnotised, they lose their tackle zone, so they can't assist on blocks. They can't catch the ball if it lands in their square. Yeah, I think just those two things, basically, until their next action. So, now there are two hypnotised players. Obviously, they can't take actions during my turn. So, for the rest of my turn, I can just run past these players without having to dodge, which is why I hypnotised this one, so that I wouldn't have to dodge with the vampire there, even though it's a pretty easy dodge. I still thought I might as well prevent myself needing it. And then, on the Amazon's next turn, until these players move or block or blitz, they still have no tackle zone. And of course, the fact that they can't assist or indeed catch the ball, say, like, if you wanted to pass to one of these, they wouldn't be able to catch it until they'd already moved, which might not be ideal. Like, say, if there was a player down here somewhere, and I hypnotised them, then really, you want to possibly throw them the ball and then have them run into the end zone. But they can't catch the ball until they've already moved, so you'd have to move them into the end zone first, which makes it a longer pass, and therefore more risky. Equally, they can't assist on blocks until they've done something, so that can mess up. It potentially messes up the order in which you have to take your actions, which, as I've said, is pretty significant, because it's all about trying to minimise the risk. That said, back to what's actually happening now. Some Amazons have come round, blitz the ball carrier. Of course, this player moved to get here, so now she can't move again. So the ball is definitely going to be here come my turn. And so I might be able to get it away from him, in theory. So the Amazons probably want to protect it. Now, here, this square would probably be a better position for that Amazon, because then I'm not really going to get round to this side of the ball carrier. It's going to be a frontal assault, most likely. If she was here, I would have to dodge into 3 tackle zones, or hypnotise some people. As it is, I can just run straight in. And now, again, coming in the back, which it's a bit far, really. Unless I make some crazy dodges, it's very unlikely that I'm going to get round behind her. In front of her, much easier. Another thing, player on the sidelines. You don't really want to put a player on the sidelines because they can be pushed out, and then they will be injured. Guaranteed. And another point, which I just recalled, was... Oh, okay, no. Yep. 3 of the Amazon's 4 blitzers are off the pitch. I don't understand why, as Amazons, you would ever voluntarily put your blitzers off the pitch. Or a starting Amazon team, especially. Because your blitzers have block and dodge. It means they're very hard to knock over. And of course they have block, which means they're better offensively as well. You want that on the pitch. Like, always, you want that on the pitch. They are your best players. So leaving them off makes no sense to me. Now here, I tried to hypnotise the wrong Amazon. I meant to try and hypnotise this one, and then Jasper would have stood up and tried to hypnotise this one, so then Sir Roderick could run around here and blitz without having to dodge at all. But I tried to hypnotise the wrong one, and it didn't work anyway. At this point, to be honest, I'm surprised. I think, yeah, I was still going to go for this blitz, which would be 2 dice, actually. But I failed Bloodlust. And, you see, I tried to re-roll it there, and it failed the second time as well. So that was kind of unfortunate. And so, this thing, I want him to end up here and hit the ball carrier, but then he wouldn't be next to a thrall that he could conveniently bite. So instead I just do this, which could have just been a block. And badly hurt my own thrall. First casualty of the match is self-inflicted. So that's not great. But I figure on the plus side I have 3 vampires up here, which are going to be hard to deal with. And I can still hit some more Amazons down here. One more point to note. Sir Mervyn Murgatroyd here has not moved so far this game. And there is a good reason for this. It's deliberate. Because if you move a vampire, or do anything with him, you have to roll for Bloodlust. There is that 1 in 6 chance that you will have to eat one of your thralls. If you don't do anything with him, there is no risk of that. He can just stand there and be an obstacle. Yeah, and I mean, he's a pretty good obstacle. He's strength 4. And obviously he's covering some squares, so they'd have to dodge to get past him. And if at some point I do need him, I can move him. But until then, I can make less dice rolls because he's already in a good enough position. that was bad luck failing that dodge. Had a reroll. So it was a reroll for the dodge skill, obviously not a team reroll. But yeah, so that actually equated to only a 1 in 9 chance of failing that dodge. It's decent odds. That's something you generally go for. But you're going to fail these things sometimes. There was probably some way that could have moved one vampire so it wouldn't have needed a dodge, and then run her over here, and it would have been a bit more inconvenient for me because my big power base is here, where I've got 3 vampires lined up. But on the other hand, there aren't many Amazons over here either, so this is looking pretty bad for the Amazons at this point. However you cut it, really, but there were problems. There was possibly a better way of doing that. I feel like she could have stood up as well. She could have stood up and moved before doing a risky handoff and dodge. Dodge wasn't that risky, as I said, but regardless. Yes, of course I move up another thrall here, so I have someone to bite if necessary. Succeed on Bloodlust, so I'm going to follow up to keep the Amazons off the square with the ball in it. Block them away. And make sure that if they want to move somewhere else, like wherever I'm going to take the ball, they have to dodge. Which, again, it probably will work because they do have a skill reroll on it, but it's not guaranteed. It's 1 more dice roll. Now of course I'm debating because I know I can score this turn, but I'm thinking, well, but what if he fails his Bloodlust? So I need to put a thrall somewhere up here, and I can't put one next to the end zone, which is what you really want, because there is no way to get around Bloodlust. If you fail your Bloodlust, get the ball on your vampire and run into the end zone with it, it doesn't matter. If you can't bite a thrall, you don't get the touchdown. If there is no thrall for you to bite when you get into the end zone, then the vampire will leave the pitch to go feed on a spectator, which is what generally happens if you can't bite a thrall after failing Bloodlust, and you can't bring him back on until the next drive. And in that particular instance, well, if he has the ball in general, he will drop it. So then, I mean, the ball will be in the end zone, but, well, firstly it might scatter out and then be thrown in, and throw-ins are one of the least predictable things in this game. And secondly, you lose your turn, the enemy has a chance to retreat. So, but regardless, he succeeded on his Bloodlust there, of course, and so I just scored. Now, here it's more understandable wanting to pick up the ball straight away, because it was on the line of scrimmage, kind of risky. And as we're about to see, it would be fairly easy for me to get at it when it's so close to me. On the other hand, still, putting another player there, or not there, because the ball was here, putting a player there so there would be a tackle on it before trying to pick it up, obviously a good idea. And then I'm not sure about attempting that pass. I would have been more inclined to dodge back out. That might have required... Hang on, I can count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, it would have required going for it to get back out, but it would have seemed safer to me than passing it. Because it's dodge on a 3 and you have a reroll on that, going for it on a 2 with a team reroll from the kickoff table, as opposed to a 4 to make the pass accurate, assuming it was a quick pass. I'm guessing it was passing to this Amazon, but I'm not sure. And then a 3 to catch, and only... yeah. Dodging out would have been less risky, and then bring up more players around, hit these guys, so I couldn't get straight at the ball. On a side note, because I've gone on about how you shouldn't pick up the ball first thing, but I actually picked up the ball fairly early on. The reason for that is bloodlust. Because I'm trying to form this sort of cage around the ball, so it's hard for the Amazons to get in and take it away from them. It's hard anyway, because vampires strength 4, and all the Amazons are only strength 3, so they need 2 assists to get 2 dice on it, but this makes it even harder. But the thing is, if Sir Roderick had failed his bloodlust roll, then of course he'd have to bite a thrall, and if the thralls around are part of the cage, and he bites one, then that blows the cage wide open. So I wanted to see whether that was going to happen or not, because if it had, then obviously I would have adjusted my other moves accordingly to cover the hole created. But it didn't, so the cage is intact. Note, Sir Mervyn still hasn't moved, because he hasn't had to. He's still well positioned, forcing dodges to get past him. And I don't actually need all 4 vampires. So here it's hard to say what really is the best thing to do here, but I would move more players over this way so that they are on hand to deal with whatever happens. I probably wouldn't have blitzed the vampire. I would have blitzed the thrall because it's easier to get 2 dice. And he's less dangerous when he hits you back. What else? Who did the blitzing? Yeah, that's a line with him. I'm sure you've got a blitzer somewhere. Maybe not. Blitzer's still off the pitch. There might be one somewhere. Fails the dodge. Could have moved players a bit more safely. I suppose I can kind of agree with this, because it would have... moving like these guys would have left this side wide open. Okay, note. I know the Amazons can't score because they have only 1 turn left, and none of them are in scoring range. I have 2 turns left, including this one, so I can only score if someone on my team is in scoring range at the end of this turn, so I make sure that is the case first thing I do. Moving these guys up. And of course, if Sir Mervyn had felt his bloodlust, I would not have run him up here. Because I didn't want to risk going for it, leading to a potential turnover. And of course, the only thrall he'd have to bite up here would be this one. So I'd be replacing one scoring threat with another. And there's the potential for failing the going for it and just ending my turn straight there before I have a chance to do anything else, such as get this tackle zone off the ball carrier, which is very important. So, yeah, this is actually pretty good, because basically I can't really hit all of these Amazons. I don't have enough players around to do it. I certainly can't hit them all in a way that is favourable to me. 2 dice my choice in each case. So really I have to move away from them, and I don't have a lot of options for where to go. I mean, I suppose I remember where I do go. So I go over here. I suppose I could potentially have alternatively moved over this way, but it's risky. It would be hard for me to, since these guys are here, it would be hard for me to cover this side and this side, given these ones, and this lady here. Go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'd be standing next to her, or further back, which I don't really want. And she could just stand up and be right on me. So yeah, this is probably the best choice here. Failing Bloodlust was unfortunate, but it's still pretty good for me, because this line, Sir Conrad here, it's very difficult to dodge past. I mean, ideal probably would be if I could somehow bite at range, so Sir Roderick could be here and then bite this thrall here, but that's obviously not possible. Plus side, of course, he's only stunned, so he's still blocking that square. In any case, it would be a dodge into 3 tackle zones to get there, but it's still relevant. And now, yeah, you kind of have to go for sort of desperation play at this point, because, well, it's that or rely on my dice rolls being bad. But the only 2 pushes, so I am going to have my chance to score next turn. Well, I would have had a chance to score next turn regardless, but it's a better chance because I don't have to like knock the ball loose from someone else or pick it up again or whatever. And oh yes, that block was 2 dice my choice, because Vampire's higher strength. And so I chose the both down to instantly end Nolan's turn, because basically otherwise he might run more people around into inconvenient positions. So, and I'd rather that he didn't. So, yeah. Get the girl off the ball carrier. Obviously first priority. Now I'm trying to figure out how I can get him through to pass the ball to the thrall here. And I figure Blitz. Blitz from a standing star up, because I want to push her out the sidelines, and I also want to move him afterwards. Because I also want this one out the way. And I want a thrall a bit further up the pitch in case of a failed Bloodlust roll. So, now, assist on this. So, take 2 dice. Push her away, and now there is no dodge required to get up the pitch. Succeeded on Bloodlust, so I can go all the way to here instead of stopping here. And now, fumble the pass. So, it didn't work, but I mean, there I needed to roll a 2+ for the pass to make it accurate, and then a 3+ to catch, and then he was in scoring range. So the odds were pretty good, to be honest. But just because the odds are good doesn't mean it'll work. It didn't work. On the other hand, I kicked that half and I am now 1-0 up. And now I'm receiving, I'm going to get the ball again. So it's pretty favourable to me. One point to note, this is a quirk of replays. I think technically it doesn't show it from the perspective of the player who... it doesn't show it from my perspective, even though it's my replay. It shows it, I think, technically from the same perspective down the pitch all the time, but you switch ends at half-time. So essentially, I get to see one half from my perspective and the other half from my opponent's perspective. It doesn't really matter, because we can still see all the action, we're just looking at it from the opposite direction. Now... Yeah, even though these are blitzers and therefore very hard to knock over, I don't agree with putting them on the front line, because it means I can hit them without using up a blitz to do so. And, that's extra blocks which you don't need to give me. Slight mistake there. I should have just put him there, because I'm going to hit this blitzer, and if he was already next to her, already assisting, then I could move him afterwards. But, regardless. So yeah, the ball lands off field, so it's a touchback. I give it to Sir Conrad, who was back there to collect it in any case. Because of course he scored the first touchdown, so another 3-star player points will get him up to 6, we'll level up. And that is something I want, because one of the downsides of vampires, along with bloodlust and the fact that the thralls are not very good, is of course they don't start with any sort of standard skills like block or dodge, which of course leads to a potential to eat through their rerolls almost as fast as they can eat through their players. Yeah, so obviously I really want some level ups on the vampires so that they can really become the best players in the game, which they pretty much can. Strength 4, agility 4, and they have the best skill access in the game, general agility and strength, without needing doubles. Developed vampires are really good if you don't fail your bloodlust. Well, even if you do, but if you fail your bloodlust, then you can run out of line by one. So, knocked someone out there. On the other hand, I have reserves. And because I sort of criticised Amazon starting with so many reserves, because they had those at the expense of rerolls. And while the Amazons are armor 7 and therefore, in theory, more likely to get injured, they also all have dodge, and the blitzers also have block, so they're less likely to fall over in the first place. Whereas my thralls have no such defense. They're much easier to knock over, and they still have armor 7. And they may get bitten by the vampires in addition, and also they're cheap, so starting with reserves is a good idea, and it's relatively easy. Yes. May note, I've had fairly bad luck with Bloodlust this turn. Yes, taking that both down there. I didn't want to use a reroll, so that was actually not a very good turn for me. Things did not go in my favour in terms of the dice. 2 thralls stunned due to Bloodlust, 1 knocked out, and then I had to take both down because I didn't want to use a reroll so early. But I'm still kind of okay because I positioned myself reasonably. It's still difficult to get at the ball because I positioned myself with this sort of stuff in mind. Takes the 1 dice. It could have gotten 2 dice there. Like, just move her in as an assist instead of blitzing with her, and then have this one stand up and blitz, and it would have been 2 dice. Obviously that wasn't necessary, because the first die was a defender stumbles, but what if that first die had been an attacker down? And then, I don't agree. I can understand, obviously, wanting to get Vampire off the pitch, because vampires are good, but fouling, unless you're really suffering from a numbers disadvantage, it's a serious risk. Especially with the Blitzer, who's a valuable player who you don't want to have removed from the game. You know, you want her on the pitch all the time, as I sort of mentioned earlier. Also should have tried to move this girl off the sidelines so I couldn't just do that. Yeah. And, okay, we are, of course, only... The Amazons have only had 1 turn in this half. But I just want to point out, look at these 3 players. Note their positions. And pay attention to when they move. So, yeah, get the tackle zone off the ball carrier, and now I can move. And I mean, it's problematic. Though, as I said, I was kind of alright because I was decently positioned. Bloodlust has still taken its toll, and these Amazons in around here are a problem. They have the potential to build up into a really big problem. Because they can slow me down and wear me down until the ball becomes exposed, if they do it right. So, yeah, that's obviously why I'm putting a lot of thought in at this point. Since we have sort of downtime, I'm just going to briefly explain my team, the names. The Ruddigore Gallery. Ruddigore was an operetta by Gilbert and Sullivan, in which a gallery of paintings, like family portraits, come to life. Well, they come back as ghosts. Not vampires, but it's still undead. It kind of fits. I think making them like vampires, if not actually vampires, is a sort of theme which has been done with the show. And so, being a great Gilbert and Sullivan fan myself, I wanted... I thought it was a decent idea for a name scheme. And so, having also recently been in a production of Ruddigore, the vampires are named after the ghosts, and the thralls are named after people who were in the production and the sort of parts they were playing. And like some characters. And I'll note, I put my ball carrier on the sidelines, and I've said several times that you don't put people on the sidelines. The difference is, he is not exposed. I would not put him on the sidelines here, because he can be easily blitzed out. But here, he's covered by these guys, and I put another one here. So to get next to him requires a dodge into 3 tackle zones. Like that. But this is still not going to push him out the sidelines. And of course, this is 2 dice my choice. They can't get better than 2 dice my choice, because they have no one with guard, and it would require multiple dodges into 3 tackle zones. I mean, like, it would require like 3 dodges into 3 tackle zones, I think, to potentially push him out with an unfavourable blitz. To be honest, I'm going to say, really, no one succumbed to desperation too soon. Because, like, in this position, as I said, these 3 players, their positions, they haven't moved yet. Also, this one has only moved because I hit her. Returning to my previous point, succumbed to desperation too early, because as I said, if he just needs to move players over, like say these ones, to form sort of a line in front of me, so that I can't advance up the pitch without making some potentially difficult dodge rolls or blitzing them. And I only have 1 blitz per turn. And in that way he can slow me down, and potentially, over the course of the half, he has most of it still left, he can win out by attrition. And I will just, this sort of cage formation that I'm setting up will just gradually get smaller and smaller until he can just run in and whack the ball carrier, take the ball away, and get an equalising touchdown. It's unlikely that he's going to get a win here, under any circumstances, really. But, he can go for the draw. But, like, that desperation play on the last turn, dodge into 3 tackle zones, and he made it, so, good luck with that. 2 dice my choice blitz, got 2 pushes, and just left a player on the sidelines for me to instantly push out. Which means he has less players to deal with me. And I move up, not very far, because I'm staying safe, but I move up. And now I think, well, I might as well take some more hits in. Because obviously this is also helping with the security of my little cage formation. Because it's 1 less player next to someone who's part of the cage. To dodge, it didn't really matter that I felt, which is why I didn't bother re-rolling it. It was the last thing I was going to do in my turn anyway. I just didn't want him in a tackle zone. I wanted him somewhere where he could potentially move across and be useful if necessary. But I don't mind if he's not. And so, again, just moving some players over to force me to dodge or blitz to get forward would be effective. Instead, it goes for the dodge, which requires a 6. Like, even if that player somehow got 2 agility ups, so agility 5, that dodge would still require a 6. And then it would be... hang on. 4, 5, 6, 7. That would be 3 dice, my choice. That's really not going to work. It's a desperation play, and again, also, it's a risk early in the turn where you could have done some less risky things first. And note once again, 1, 2, 3, 4 have not moved onto their own power. 1, 2, 3 have not moved at all. 4 has only moved because I hit her. And I move forwards, bit by bit. A bigger bit this time. Making sure I'm... Oh yeah, I was making him part of the cage, and he was there to be bitten if necessary. And it turns out it's necessary. And he's knocked out. So see, like, I'm removing my own players from the pitch gradually. I have to use a reroll on this block. Still don't get much out of it. As I said, the cage is gradually decreasing in size. So if there were some players over here making it more difficult for the cage to advance, then maybe I wouldn't have gotten this far, and it would have already reduced in size. It might have reduced in size even more because players were getting tied up with dealing with the enemy players trying to stop me moving forwards. As it is, I've been allowed to sort of run fairly uncontested up this side of the pitch. And the cage is only reduced in size because I'm vampires and bloodlust is an issue. So add a bit of my opponent actually contributing to the demolition of my team, and could easily have ended up with a situation where the ball carrier would end up more exposed. But it hasn't. And again, 1, 2, 3 have not moved, 4 has not moved under her own power. I have all 4 vampires over here now to act as deterrents. Moves for the first time, attempts to dodge into 3 tackle zones. This is... The desperation play is more understandable now, because in scoring range. Forgot to move a 4 up first, panicked for a moment when I realised, but I succeeded on the bust, so it was okay. But those players who didn't move, if they'd moved to block my advance, that could have gone very differently. It could have led to the Amazons recovering the ball and taking the game to 1-1, instead of me taking it to 2-0 relatively uncontested. Oh, as a side note, which I just remembered, I was talking about the names of my team. I would just like to point out, in case anyone assumes otherwise, and particularly in case he watches this video, Rory the Idiot is a reference entirely to the character notes, and does not in any way reflect my opinion of Rory in real life. just so we're clear. I named players after people I know in real life. I did not take that opportunity as an opportunity to insult them. So... and now... yeah, I'm also up for defense. He's gotten a reroll from the kickoff table, and immediately has to use it on a going for it, which he didn't really have to make. It's desperation again. Like, including this one, 4 turns in which to potentially score 1 touchdown, or I guess salvage some honour or whatever. But instead, he's still in this desperation mindset. He's kind of tunnel visioning it, and not doing it very well. Because, like, this is not what you want to do. Because even if she made the dodge with a roll of 4, 4, and then a 3, then she's by herself with the ball in my half of the pitch, and I can just blitz her easily. Knock the ball loose, pick it up, and then I've got it, and I'm in control again. Put Gepagadaby in the wrong place, he should be here. But that only became evident to me later on, in light of what I'm going to do with my blitz. Like, this is more reasonable that it wasn't covered, because, I mean, again, you know, moving people carries no risk, so can cover the gap in the formation. I don't really know what was up with this either. Could have covered the gap in the formation before doing the risky thing. Shouldn't really have done the risky thing anyway. Like, maybe you could try to make those dodges. Get your catcher into scoring range, but then you do that with her when she doesn't have the ball, and then she's a threat, and I have to decide, well, do I hit the scoring threat, or do I go for the person who actually has the ball and try to get to them? Particularly if you can get more than one person in, then it's, well, I can't get to all of them. And then on a subsequent turn, you can just pass the ball down the pitch and have a good chance to score. This, it was highly unlikely to work under any circumstances, and as it is, fell at the first hurdle, and the ball ended up somewhere I could immediately get to it. Now, a useful point to note, is because I've saved my rerolls from earlier on, didn't use them on things where I didn't really have to, where it didn't really matter, I still have them here, so I can reroll that block, which is more important because I want to cover the ball carrier a bit more. And yes, there we go. There I go. This guy here, and now you see Gepagadaby should really be here, because then that would be a dodge into 3 tackles over the ball. That would be a dodge into 2. There would be a dodge required to actually get to the ball carrier, rather than just running in. It's still obviously unfavourable. You know, it's 2 dice my choice, but it could have been 2 dice my choice after having to roll a 5 or a 6 on a dodge. I mean, on the other hand, rolls the 6. And didn't roll that well. Yeah, I got the 3 and then 4. I apologise for the lag, incidentally. I can't really do anything about it. My computer's not that good. But I think it's only coming up occasionally, so you can still basically catch what's going on. Now, as usual, I want the tackle zones off the ball carrier, first thing. And now I'm thinking I can potentially score this turn with 2 going for it, or I can just put the ball carrier right pretty much next to the end zone. Either way, I want to cover myself in case of bloodlust. So I don't know if it really mattered whether I bit Old Adam or Mountain Morris here. But I picked Old Adam. The main point was I had to not bite Gaffer Gaddaby because he is the Thor who hadn't done anything yet and could therefore still move up to here to be potentially bitten. And now, you can see, I could go for it twice to just get the touchdown now, but I don't have to. It's highly unlikely, though theoretically possible, for the Amazons to prevent this touchdown, and I can make it even more highly unlikely. Whereas the other 2 going for it, I could easily fail them. And then the Amazons would have 2 turns in which to score a touchdown in response, which is possible. Whereas I can just make it very difficult for them to stop me and score next turn. Which, obviously, I thought for a while about which option I was going to take. But, yeah. Because, okay, beforehand, this player could have dodged on 3, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, go for it to blitz. 2 dice my choice. So it's still good, but it was not. And this one could dodge on a 4. See, now this is impossible, but before could have dodged on a 4, dodged on a 5, dodged on a 3, 4, 5, 6, 1 go for it to blitz. Still 2 dice by choice. Or you could have done 1 as an assist and then blitz, and it would have been 1 dice, but then more dice. That's obviously more dice rolls to just get them there. So it was highly unlikely to work. Now the only option was dodge on a 5, dodge on a 4, dodge on a 3, and then 2 go for it to blitz. I put that sequence of actions into the Samba action calculator, which tells you the odds of sequences of actions in Blood Bowl. I've actually forgotten what the odds were, but they were pretty low. Like, it had maybe a 6% chance of working, I would say. I could be wrong. I'll have to check again. Touchdown. There we go. Now we match 3-0. Wait a minute. It's theoretically possible that we could roll a riot on the kickoff table, have the clock put back a turn, giving the Amazons 2 turns in which to score, which, as I already said, is possible. But, spoiler warning, we don't roll a riot on the kickoff table. I win the match 3-0. And so, here we go. This is basically dead time. It's just an opportunity for the Amazons to try and get a few extra star player points, such as by throwing a completion down. It worked, but I don't really understand why you wouldn't run your thrower a bit closer after picking up the ball, so it would be a shorter pass and more likely to work. Also, there is no point in running your catcher up the sidelines. I mean, there's no reason not to either, because I have no turns left in which to do anything about it, but then taking the two going for it, if you failed one, you could injure your catcher and lose your opportunities to hit me. And if you did have turns left, you left her on the sidelines and she'd get pushed out, and you'd lose the ball. So, I don't quite get that. But regardless, it basically made no difference. 3-0. MVP goes to a thrall who didn't actually do that much. MVP goes to a catcher who didn't actually do that much, as far as I recall. Yeah. No casualties for either side. One casualty sustained, that was me biting my own thrall, and those were failed dodges, I think. But nothing permanent anyway. Good game.